Hello everybody, and welcome back to Scary Skyrim Stories. I have two of them for you today, and this is a trigger warning. They both have mature themes. The first one we'll go over is a necromancer's journal, who let's just say likes to pleasure himself with dead people. And the second story is about an axe-wielding Morag Tong and his backstory, but it suggests child abuse, and it talks about it, so that's just a fair trigger warning. Anyways, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Day 1. It seems the cretins of Dawnstar are not quite as sick foolish as I had surmised. They found my experimentations, and needless to say, were not pleased with what they saw. No matter, my work can only flourish without the distractions of living amongst the unenlightened. I found a cave off the north coast of Skyrim that will be more than sufficient for my continued studies. The ruins of Yingvild should hold the materials I need to learn more about the remaining and enslaving the dead. On a personal note, I will miss the young maidens of Dawnstar. Such beauty was intoxication. I often found my thoughts wandering around them, imaging secret encounters between myself and one or two of those local girls. Day 8. I have established a temporary workstation in the cold caves and have found multiple burial chambers within the snow and ice. While in the first chamber, I exhumed a few test subjects, all female. I was stunned to find my mind wandering again to the woman of Dawnstar as I examined my find. At first, I was slightly disturbed by my thoughts, but later, I found myself re-evaluating. Day 9. The first trials went splendidly. Each subject was reanimated in a state of total complacency, bending to my every task and whim. I have ordered a few of my new servants to guard the island, while the rest will act as my personal entourage, standing by me at all times, standing watch over me while I sleep. Day 21. An intriguing development. Tonight, my guards have brought me a trespasser they found near the cave. At first, I was understandably upset. Not only was I disturbed during one of my few moments alone with my favorite servant, but I recognized the trespasser as a milkmaid from Dawnstar. She remembered me as well, and made bold claims that I had been lurking near her at all hours. What lies! True, I had taken notice of her on occasion, but she was nowhere near the most noticeable of maidens in town. Her continued accusations, coupled with my fear of more uninvited guests, led me to conclude that she could never return to Dawnstar. My servants were quick to carry out my sentencing. Her body here is next to me as I write this. Funny, her eyes are still so full of life. Perhaps I will try a new experiment tonight, using fresher materials. Day 28. The new experiment has proven a success. The milkmaid, whose name still escapes me, was revived as the others, bowing to my commands, with only one interesting development. She has reformed incorporeally, more phantasm than reanimated dead. As her glowing visage stood before me, I found my hand reaching out to touch her. As my fingers passed through her, I felt a sensation unlike any other, as if her essence were invigorating my very soul, connecting with me on a level no woman of flesh and blood could do. This discovery is life-changing. I have ordered my older servants to go out and find any more subjects that may have become lost. With the discovery of the inner sanctum, deeper still within Yingvild, I shall have sufficient room to store many new materials until I can transform them into willing slaves. I look back on my daydreams whilst living in Dawnstar, and wonder if they were in fact portents of time to come. Of all the members of the Morag Tong I've spoken with, none disturbed me as much as Minas Torek, a quiet and reserved man who never drank, never visited a brothel, or even uttered a curse. He was famous for his ability to make people disappear. Once a person was targeted by the Brotherhood, and Torek was sent to them, they would simply cease to be. I asked him once what his weapon of choice was, and was equally startled by his answer. "I only like to use axes," he said in his typical quiet voice. The image of this silent, dour fellow attacking anyone with a weapon as inherently bloody and violent as an axe so frightened and intrigued me that I questioned him about it further. This is inherently dangerous activity for assassins. They are not typically keen to give out their stories. Torek did not mind the questions, though it took some time to get the full story out of him, as naturally shy and reserved as he was. It seemed that Torek had been orphaned at a very young age, and sent to live with his uncle, a salt rice plantation owner in Sheogorad, in northern Vardenfell. The man promised to show his nephew the business and eventually make him a partner when he was old enough. In the meantime, the boy was put to work as his uncle's house servant. It was a grueling life, as the old man was very particular about how things should be done. The boy was first required to give all of the floors in the house a thorough scouring, from the attic to the cellar. Whenever the floor was not cleaned to the uncle's satisfaction, which was frequent, Torek was thrashed and forced to begin again. The boy's second duty was to ring the bell that would bring the laborers into the house. This was done at least 4 times a day, once for each meal. But if his uncle had any news or additional instructions for the laborers, which he frequently did, the bell might need to be sounded a dozen times or more. It was a huge iron bell in the tower, and the boy quickly discovered that he had to throw his entire body into the motion of pulling the chain in order to have it sound loud enough to bring everyone in from the field. If he was tired and did not pull the back-breaking chain hard enough, his uncle was soon at his side to beat him until he rang the bell loud and clear. Torek's third task was dusting all of the shelves in his uncle's vast library. As deep and old as the shelves were, he was required to work with a long, heavy duster on a rod. The only way that he could reach to the back of the shelves was to hold the duster at his shoulder, then swing it out in a sweeping motion. Again, if the uncle saw any dust left over or felt that the boy was not working as hard as he ought to, the punishment was swift and severe. After several years, Minas Torek grew into a young man, but his job responsibilities were not increased. His uncle promised to teach him the business once Torek had demonstrated his mastery of his servile assignments. Divorced from any knowledge of any work other than his own, Torek never knew how badly in debt his uncle was and how poorly the farm's yield was. In his 18th year, Torek was called into the cellar by his uncle. He thought that he had not done a good enough job scouring the floor down there, and was frightened of the beating to come. What he found, however, was his uncle packing his goods into crates. "I'm leaving Morrowind," he explained. "The business has gone sour, so I thought I'd try my luck running a caravan in Skyrim. I understand there's good money to be made, trading fake Dwemer artifacts to the Nords and Cyrodiils. I wish I could take you with me, my lad, but there won't be much need for scouring, bell pulling, and dusting where I'm going." "But uncle," said Torek, "I can't read. I knows nothing of the business you promised to teach me. What wills I do on my own?" "I'm certain you can find a job in some domestic capacity," shrugged Uncle. "I have done my best with you." Torek had never stood up to his uncle before, and felt no anger, only a sort of coldness that gripped his heart. Among his uncle's possessions, being packed away, was an old, heavy iron axe, allegedly of the Dwemer manufacturer. He picked it up, and his hands was surprised. He picked it up in his hands and was surprised to find that it was not much heavier than his dusting rod. In fact, it felt very comfortable as he pulled it over his shoulders and swung it out as he had done so many times before. In this instance, however, he swung it into his uncle's right arm. The old man screamed with pain and rage, but for some reason, Torek didn't feel frightened anymore. He propped the axe against his other shoulder and swung it out again. It cut a swath across the old man's chest and he fell to the floor. Torque hesitated before lifting the axe above his head. It was another natural position for him, like he was ringing a bell, over and over and over again. He swung down as if he was calling the laborers in from the field, except that this time there was no sound except for a wet thump, and no laborers came in from the field. Of course, his uncle had sent them away hours before. After a time, there was nothing left of his uncle that couldn't be washed down the cellar drain. The process of cleaning up came easily to Torque as well. Blood scrubbed up much quicker than the usual grime of salt rice flour that littered the cellar floor. It was well known that Torque's uncle was planning to leave Morrowind, so his disappearance provoked no suspicion. The house and all the belongings were sold to the debt collectors, but Torque took the axe. It seemed that his uncle had given him some worthwhile business skills. After all,